by Snow White actress ahead of Snow White disaster release. Now, let's be honest, it looks like Disney is trying to go ahead and keep Rachel Zegler quiet ahead of the whole Snow White release. Now, you've probably seen all the talk on YouTube, maybe even caught, an article or two online on websites like that Park Place, but even on X. What if I told you there's something new happening here? You see, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, who plays the Evil Queen in the upcoming film, have basically been at the center of controversy. Okay, now Gal Gadot, she's decided that she's not going to be silent, and Rachel Zegler, on the other hand, is basically nowhere to be found, and that's raising a lot of eyebrows right now. Now, why is Rachel Zegler suddenly absent from the marketing push for the movie Snow White? Now, this here is interesting. While Disney seems to be keeping Rachel Zegler on a short leash, Gal Gadot is basically out here making bold statements, basically completely unfiltered. And this is also a stark contrast in what's really going on behind the scenes. Now, Rachel Zegler was once the face of the Snow White remake, but now we all have, Gal Gadot here appearing to go ahead and carrying the whole weight of the film's press strategy. You see, Rachel Zegler's absence is glaring, and Gal Gadot's presence only makes the situation even more obvious. Okay, that's no surprise right there because everyone's rooting for Gal Gadot more. But Godot recently put out a message that has caught a lot of attention where she's openly discussing her background, her identity, and her heritage in a way that's making waves. You see, she's proud of who she is and she's not backing down from expressing it. And Rachel Zegler, in contrast, has gone silent. Now, it's also clear that Disney has made a calculated decision where Gal Gadot is being allowed to speak while Rachel Zegler, on the other hand, is being muzzled. Okay. Now, meanwhile, Zegler, who's been making all the sorts of controversial comments, as we all know, in the past, is all of a sudden nowhere to be found in Disney's press strategy. Now, it seems like the studio has actually learned a lesson about letting Zegler speak freely, and Gal Gadot, however, is proven to be a whole different story altogether. All right, but then there's also a clip out there of Gal Gadot from a recent event where she plainly states who she is, emphasizing her Israeli background and beliefs, and it's also a powerful moment, and it actually stands in sharp contrast to what we've actually seen from Zegler, who has a history of taking divisive stances. And it's also fascinating to see Disney elevating Gal Gadot while keeping Zegler, on the sidelines. All right. Now, why does all of this matter? Well, it actually speaks volumes about how Disney is actually managing the situation itself. They seem to trust Gal Gadot to represent the film, but at the same time are worried about what Zegler might say next. Now, that should tell you something about the whole PR nightmare that they're trying to avoid. I mean, this is Disney. They're actually doing caught up in nothing but PR scandals. And let's be honest, Rachel Zegler hasn't exactly won over audiences from her comments on the original Snow White film to her general attitude towards fans, and she's managed to alienate a lot of people. Now, the fact that Disney is keeping Richard Zegler away from microphones and stuff, I mean, is obvious and it's also telling a lot right now. But at the same time, I mean, Gal Gadot, on the other hand, is being given the space to speak freely, rightfully so, and it's clear that she's got a very different approach. You see, she's coming across as confident, if you will, sincere, and unafraid to share her beliefs. Whereas Rachel Zegler, on the other hand, I mean, her reputation for being antagonistic and dismissive. All right. Now, the shield media is trying to spin this, of course. You see, they wanted to frame any backlash against Rachel Zegler as basically some kind of political issue rather than just simply acknowledging that people don't like the way that Rachel Zegler carries herself, okay? But let's be real, the audiences aren't buying it at all. I'm not buying it either. You're not as well. Meanwhile, there's reports that Disney has scrapped this UK premiere of Snow White, supposedly over fears of backlash. But I mean, let's be real here. This is more than about just simply like any kind of damage control, if you will. and then anything else. And they know that this movie is already facing a tough road ahead. Now, another thing to consider also is that the projections for Snow White's box office aren't looking good either. You see, Disney is desperate to avoid making things worse, and that's why they actually keep such a tight control over the press events and, basically screening questions for Richard Zegler. Okay. And that's really the issue here right now. You see, Disney doesn't trust their own lead actress, Rachel Zegler, to even promote the film itself without making things worse. Now, that should tell you everything you need to know. Okay. But basically, I mean, while Rachel Zegler is being kept on a tight leash about this all and stuff, and Gal Gadot is out there making headlines for all the right reasons, and it's actually pretty fascinating, if you ask me, that and to a fascinating contrast that and one that Disney probably has wishes that they didn't have to deal with. Okay, but at the end of the day, I mean, this just comes to show that Disney has fallen. They've created a situation where their own marketing strategy involves keeping Rachel Zegler quiet as possible. Now, that's not a great sign for the success of the movie itself. But this is just a larger problem that we've seen from Hollywood in recent years. You see, studios push actors who they think fit their agenda. But when those same actors become basically liabilities, they don't know what to do with them. You see, it's just a cycle that keeps repeating itself, and audiences are, well, they're simply just tired of it. I mean, look at the way that Disney handled the backlash over the Little Mermaid. You see, they pushed the Halle Bailey to the front and just framed all the criticism as a political issue. They're doing the same thing with Richard Zegler, but in reality, most people were simply just upset about the quality of the film itself. Now they're trying to do the same damage control routine with Rachel Zegler, but guess what? It's not working at all. Now, it's simple. Hollywood has forgotten how to connect with the audiences. You see, they care more about DEI representation than good storytelling. They keep remaking the same classics, injecting modern woke sensibilities that often felt out of place, and then blaming the fans when they don't get the response that they want. Now, it's no wonder that everyone's tuned out, okay? Now, Gal Gadot, however, is handling things differently. You see, she's actually engaging with fans, presenting herself as a strong, confident, and showing that, she understands how to navigate Hollywood without alienating the audience. Now, that's something that Disney should be paying attention to, okay, as well as Zegler herself. But I mean, ultimately, the Snow White disaster is just basically another symptom of a larger Hollywood problem where studios have actually lost touch with what their audiences actually want instead of just, simply creating compelling stories with strong, relatable characters. I mean, they're more focused on the woke messaging itself, all right? And when that messaging actually starts to backfire, thanks to actors like Rachel Zegler and stuff, they scramble to fix it instead of just addressing the root issue itself. Okay. So, yeah, what happens next? I mean, unless Disney changes course, Snow White is likely to be another, no, it's definitely going to be another major box office failure. And if they keep sidelining Rachel Zegler while pushing Gal Gadot forward, I mean, it's going to make things more awkward for them. Now, the contrast is too obvious for anyone to ignore. Okay, now we'll just go ahead and keep simply watching to see how all this plays out and stuff. Okay, but one thing's for sure: this Snow White disaster is simply just getting started. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Smash the like button in the video. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Click the bell notification so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.